People all across the Central Coast have noticed a white, stringy substance falling from the sky. Take a look at these photos viewers sent in to us. Some described it as sticky, like a cobweb. Others say it's similar to cotton. Some are speculating that the substance was released by jets flying over the area.
So the huge history of the government spraying whatever it is they want to in the air.
Looking at mostly cloudy skies, so we have the clouds out there, but not the rain. Well, if you're looking at the radar picture, you're probably saying, well, we have some blue on the radar here. What's that all about if it's not raining out there? Well, believe it or not, this is actually not rain. This is called chaff. This is something that the military actually let out of their aircraft a couple of hours ago. It can be plastic, it can be aluminum, and basically it's something that they emit from the aircraft in order to confuse radar, and it's used in times of war, obviously, but obviously just an experiment here over the Fort Myers area. This is rain. This is all man-made material. No known harm to any humans, but nonetheless, just wanted to show you that on the radar picture. And if nothing else, it's actually a great thing that the military has that as an option. Now, look at the radar picture. We have technology that can erase all of that man-made material and show you only the rain.
On this Thursday, we had a little cloud cover in the morning hours, a couple of showers as well. A bit of an unusual situation. Now, this first portion of the radar cycle, fairly bland and typical, but then you see these bands of very distinct cloud cover moving into the region. That is not rain, that is not snow, believe it or not. Military aircraft flying through the region dropping chaff. Small bits of aluminum, sometimes it's made of plastic, or even metallicized paper products. Obviously, they're up there practicing. Now, they won't confirm that, but I was in the Marine Corps for many years, and I'll tell you right now, that's what it is.
Last weather segment. This is inevitably military or something going on. And when you see this kind of a pattern like this, you can rest assured there's something going on. They're actually little bitty magnetic and little bitty strips of, whether it's aluminum, you know, they change it.
This is from more than likely military exercises going on in a designated area off the coast of Key West now. What they do is they sometimes throw some materials in the air that are supposedly not toxic.
There is a proven history.
Increasingly valid. Now that we're seeing the high-tech world unfold, the impact of science on society will become so impactful that disruptive tech takes over, and the whole scale of war and what we know about living is probably outmoded and should be rethought in context of emerging technologies.
And that brings up an important point. This document, and this is going to come into play a lot throughout this document, the timing of this document. This document came out July 2001. So this document came out just months before the September 11th attacks. And I also want to say again, not debunked. There's websites out there that try to say this is a debunked document. This document may be 12 years old, but it also may be more relevant than ever in light of what we're seeing now, that's happening to us now. And you can find this document on for example, the Federation of American Scientists.org, their website's got it. I mean, it's out there. And this guy has given similar presentations like this to the Navy and other organizations as well. So this is not a debunked document by any means. This document is real, and it was written July 2001. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. We're not going to do every single slide. So well, that sounds pleasant and charming. This presentation was based on futures work for and with, and you've got everybody on here, the U.S. Air Force, National Research Council, Army After Next, DARPA's on here, DIA is on here, CIA is on here, FBI is on here, SOCOM. Everybody came to the party on this document. It also goes on to say it's meant to incite thought and discussion, and that it's based in all cases upon existing data, trends, analyses, and technologies. No pixie dust. So this is not some stuff he just made up. It is meant to incite.
It's not stuff they're hoping they might someday develop. It's stuff that they have their fingers on.
Exactly. Going in assumptions. Politics does change overnight. Potential capabilities is the future warfare issue, not who, but what.
I think we saw that in the Arab Spring, and it was enabled by technology specifically. Need
to plan, quote unquote, differently. The world is in the throes, and remember that was in the throes as of July 2001, of triple exponential IT, bio, nano technological revolutions. Changes are occurring at scales of months instead of decades. Zeroth order potential effects upon defense, offense, equipment, ConOps, threat. Okay, now this is a quote from P. Criolla, Spaceship Earth. This is what they're saying.
Hi, this is Richard Forrester, Amador County Supervisor and CSAC President, and I'm here to tell you today that there's a crisis in California.
The tree mortality that we're experiencing, it's really unprecedented, and unless you get into the Sierra Nevada, in particular the central and southern Sierras, you don't necessarily understand the gravity of it. We've got lots of photos and videos of it, but they don't do justice unless you're flying over it or standing in these stands of dead trees.
This has been progressive but quick. The bark beetle, which is always with us, has benefited from the effects of the drought. They go from tree to tree and go to the center of those trees. There's your 29 million plus trees that are being affected by the bark beetles now. Going to be catastrophic for California.
These dead trees are leaving a high number of hazard trees in our forests around communities, campgrounds, along roads, trails, and power lines. They also pose a significant risk to communities if a wildfire breaks out in these high hazard areas.
If we have a fire and the tree's up and it comes down across the road, then people get trapped in the fire. Challenge to anybody here.
We're seeing an almost entire species loss here, of the predominant species for this area.
Those trees are essentially the lungs of the state, and so from an air quality perspective, they're critical in terms of just maintaining general air quality. They sequester carbon and hold on to emissions that would otherwise be coming out from wildfires.
Because when this stuff burns, all that carbon goes in the atmosphere. Every
The Rocky Mountains of North America, home to some of the most beautiful, pristine forests in the world. But the shades of burnt gold and reds aren't the changing tones of autumn. They're dead and dying trees.
We're looking at tree mortality over a scale of tens of millions of hectares in the last decade alone.
In fact, right across the globe, there are reports of trees dying in mass numbers. From Europe, from Africa, even right across the Amazon, and right here in Australia. Summer provided an ideal feeding ground. This big eucalypt took hundreds of years to grow and died in just a couple of weeks. In fact, nearly every tree you see here died suddenly and at the same time.
Last summer was the hottest, driest period on record, and we had some 122 days with no rain. We had weeks with over 42 degrees, and we started to see large areas just collapsing and dying.
So we took an aeroplane up, and it was amazing to see the extent of the yellowing and purpling and the numbers of trees that were dead. In the Perth Hills, we lost approximately 20,000 hectares of trees.
Again, we don't fully understand what's driving these declines, but in some areas we're losing 100% of the trees.
Despite many different ailments, there is one obvious common stressor that could explain the heart of the world's biggest rainforest suffered a drought so hot and severe, it turned the Amazon jungle from a carbon sink to a carbon source. A second, once-in-a-century drought happened 5 years later.
So what we're seeing in these forest die-off events around the world
happened 5 years later.
So what we're seeing in these forest die-off events around the world are trees passing the tipping point of stress, the thresholds of mortality. Unfortunately, we don't know very much about these thresholds at this point. What's most alarming is that these die-off events may be just the tip of the iceberg. We know that warming temperatures exacerbate tree mortality, and the climate predictions are that the world is going to get much warmer soon. So we may be just at the very front edge of what could be wholesale mortality of the world's forests, the forests that we know and care about today.